Hello, my name is Jenn Satish. I am super honored to be here, and I'm excited to share with you what God's been teaching me through this passage. So Pastor Jason gave us this passage. I was reviewing it, read it a bunch of times. Good stuff. We've all read it before. And what really stood out to me was the part where Paul talks about how suffering leads to perseverance, and perseverance, character, and character, hope. Good stuff. Believed it all my life. Didn't really question it. Until recently, I was like, I don't understand why he's so certain and confident that it is going to result in refined character. I don't know about you, but suffering does not always result in refined character. I think suffering results in frustration and bitterness and shame and a lot of hurt. So I don't know what Paul was talking about. But he was certain, and I was really intrigued by this. I was low-key frustrated with Paul too, but I was intrigued. So I was looking, and I was like, okay, God, like, what's going on here? Like, show me what's happening. And sometimes nobody wants to persevere. Sometimes you just want to give up because things aren't working out the way you expected them to. So I'm going to share a little bit of what this looked like for me. So if you know this, but in January, I was back home in Dubai for my winter break, and it was a great break, and I was getting ready to come back. I was going to start my second semester of my master's, super excited, looking forward to it, packed up my bags, said my goodbyes, finished all the crying, get to the airport. Long story short, I didn't have the right paperwork to fly back into Canada. And I was like, okay, be chill. The guy at the counter assured me that in a week it'll get sorted, I can fly back. Mind you, at this point, I'm already a sobbing mess. I was going to miss a week of training, of classes. And I was like, okay, if it's a week, it's okay. I applied for my paperwork. The next day, they called me for my fingerprints. I was like, this is going really fast. Like, God, you're really coming through. This is going to make a great testimony. Happy me. And that is the last I heard about my visa for until a month. And during this point, my visit visa in Dubai expired, and to renew it, you need to exit the country and re-enter. So the day I found out, I took the red-eye to India, one-way ticket. I was crying while packing. And I was like, okay, I have no idea what's happening anymore. And I finished my trip, came back to Dubai, ready to come back here. I was like, okay, one more week, we're ready. I get a call from India. My grandma passed away, and she's somebody that I'm very, very close to. So again, flew to India, finished the funeral, the memorial, got back in a day. I flew back here. I didn't really know how to respond. I didn't compute anything. I was in shock. I just came back here, and I was like, okay, life here again. And here is a journal entry that I wrote on January 6th. So I said, I have so many questions. I just want to quit school, and I want to sit in a hole and cry and be angry with you. But I will do everything in my power to consciously give you thanks and praise. I will not question it, but I will be open to what you're teaching me through this, because you are a God who always shows up and leaves us in awe. January 16th, God, I'm disliking this process so much. I know you're teaching me patience and trust, but I think I've had enough. But let your will be done. And usually when something like this happens, I retreat, and then I come back to you when it's resolved, and that's a terrible pattern, but I don't want to do that this time. I know I've been distant the past few days, but this time I'm going to be closer, because I'm going to trust that you are a God who honors your word. You are a God who keeps your promises, and those who look to you, their faces are radiant, and they will not be covered in shame. And that's when God was teaching me that during this process of your suffering and your character refinement, there's that process of perseverance that means so much. In that process, he is refining your character, but there's a chance that it might not come out refined. There's a choice that you're going to have to make to surrender to what God wants to do in your life. And through this, God was just teaching me that your foundation dictates how you respond. Your foundation is going to dictate how you fight in the face of suffering. And one of the things that God made so evident through this is that the importance for us to be able to ground ourselves in the nature of who God is. If you are not grounded in that, you are going to waver. So he was just like, Jenn, you need to be grounded and know that in my very nature, my intentions for you are good. God's intentions for you are good, and they always will be. And they may not always look the way you want it to look. Between those entries that I shared, it was me saying, God, I'm frustrated, and I'm angry, and I'm like restless, and I don't know what you're doing. And another thing that was huge for me to learn was when God said, don't associate the lack of your expected outcome to shame. I'm going to repeat that. Don't associate the lack of your expected outcome to shame. That is not shame at all. Because it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to turn out, that is not shame for you to carry. And so I encourage you that in this process, when you step into suffering, that you would be bold in grounding yourself in who God is, in the foundation of who God is. And so on January 22nd, I have another journal entry. And I said, I think in this season, I'm learning steadfastness in displacement. I'm learning of God's steadfast love, and I'm learning to be steadfast in my dependence on him. So my prayer for you guys is that you would learn that in his very nature, he's good to you. And you have the full freedom to trust in him and to surrender your process. Thank you.